time, I had a much longer commute and I was listening to a talk radio show out of Chicago. And one of John Wayne's sons, Ethan Wayne, who had decided to create this spirit in his father's honor, um, was going around doing like a promotional tour. And he did an interview on the radio show that I listened to. And just to hear him talk about the whiskey and the fact that he had discovered all of these notes that his father had taken. So John Wayne apparently kept extensive notes on whiskeys he had tried, things he liked, things he didn't like. And eventually it kind of turned into a whole, well, if he had his own distillery, if he were making his own whiskey, like what would he do? What would he want? And when Ethan came across all of these notes, he was pretty inspired to, take up the torch and make this dream of his father's come true. Now, to start your own distillery, it's a huge thing. Like, you need land, you need stills, you need all of this stuff. But there are companies that will take an idea or really good notes or just a concept of what you want, and they'll distill something for you and they'll help you create it. So, what he did was he approached a company which I think they've been renamed now to Green River. If you look on their website, it still says the OZ Tyler Distillery. And so listening to him discuss like all the different tasty notes, all the different things that his father would look for in a whiskey, really kind of opened my mind to the idea that there were different things to look for in whiskeys, that there were different varieties and things to really appreciate in them. So at that time, I think I hadn't really had much, right? Like I'm going and ordering a whiskey sour, which has God knows what, and then some sour mix in it. And I was enjoying it well enough, but it just sort of struck me as, well, really interesting, right? Like there's a whole lot here that I'm missing out on, right? Just going and ordering a cocktail with whiskey in it. So I knew I liked a nice whiskey ginger. And I thought to myself, well, let's give this a try. So I picked up a bottle of the Duke around 10 years ago, right when it came out. The bottle was completely different. It had more of the cowboy theme you'd expect from John Wayne. This is a little more sophisticated, I guess you'd say, but it's all good. I mean, there's something to be said for like the cowboy look of the old bottle that I enjoyed, but this one's really nice as well. So speaking of different notes, let's get in here. This happens to be my fourth bottle of the Duke. So over the last 10 years, I mean, so spoiler alert, I kind of like it. I have not only purchased it, but repurchased it a few times. So the color of it is, like a nice caramely, not too deep, not too light. I know a lot of companies will add coloration, so I don't really put a lot of thought or expectation into it of, meaning, I guess I would say. But it looks very pleasant, right? Like if you're going to use this in a cocktail, especially, like you're not going to lose too much of that color, and you're going to feel like you've definitely got some whiskey in there. And one thing I really like about this is it doesn't feel like it's kind of melting your face off. Sometimes you go to have a smell of, especially bourbons, and you just really get that alcohol hit from it. But even though I just poured this and only gave it a few swirls in a few seconds, you really do pick up the actual notes from the whiskey itself, like the nice vanilla, the nice caramel. I remember trying this a little while ago after, I've expanded my own palate and my own ability to kind of pick out notes and enjoy various things in whiskeys. And I remember thinking, man, this isn't as honey as you'd expect a bourbon to be. It's a little more caramely aside. So I thought this seemed really charred. And on the website, it says that they have heavily charred barrels. So you definitely get the caramel instead of honey on the nose of this. One of the favorite things I discovered while I was doing some research for this was they have a website with like the legacy of John Wayne and some of his different life history moments. And they had like a whole little timeline of John Wayne. And the coolest thing, at least to me, so you remember the scene in Indiana Jones with his father? So it's the Search for the Holy Grail, that Indiana Jones movie. There's a scene in there where I think either someone's talking to him or for some reason, like Indiana comes up for the first time in front of his father, which he hadn't seen in a while. And his father just started laughing and was like, Indiana? That's the dog's name. So, my favorite thing I learned is the nickname Duke, actually came to John Wayne when he was a boy living in California. He would take their dog, Duke, to the local fire station. And so the firefighters were, they're excited to see the dog and the little boy. Like, there wasn't a lot of television or Netflix or TikTok back in the day. So, for entertainment, he would just go hang out at the fire station. And they started calling, I think his name was Marion. they started calling him Duke instead of, his actual first name, and it just stuck, right? All throughout high school, throughout his college, his football career, he was named Duke after the dog, just like Indiana Jones. So, if you bring this to a party, fun trivia bit. All right, let's take a sip. So the notes in this for the palate, it's not too spicy, right? Like this really feels very approachable. I love how it's sweet but more like a caramely, and there's a freshness to it. So I do like this in the summertime especially. So I feel like especially on certain days, like I'll just pick up fresh orange from it. And so between the caramely flavor, the fresh orange, the vanilla, and almost like a little bit of shortcake with the toastedness for the corn. Oh my goodness. Oh yeah, so the mash bill for this is 75% corn, not uncommon, and then 13% rye, 12% barley. So it kind of comes through as like a nice toasted corn, like a little shortcakey. It just feels like a lovely dessert that you'd enjoy in the summertime. So I love the idea of John Wayne coming home from a hard day at the office, which for him is being a certified badass on the movie set. Whether he was being a cowboy, a soldier, whatever he was doing, like it was a pretty intense day. So the idea of him coming home to something that's not gonna like burn you all the way down your throat, like you feel it. You certainly get some of that warming sensation you'd get from a bourbon, but it isn't too much. It's just a nice treat and a little reward at the end of a hard day. So this is a really nice bourbon. It's very approachable. People who may not enjoy bourbons initially, like myself, certainly, will really like this. So it's a great thing to bring to parties. You can pull out that fun bit of trivia about the Duke being John Wayne, named after, not named after, but he ended up with that nickname through the dog, which is pretty cute. And so you can bring this out at a party, either you're hosting or bring it as a gift for the hosts themselves. And sharing some of your favorite John Wayne memories. It's a delightful way to spend the evening. And on the finish, you're left with that kind of like nice charred, sort of like old leather kind of flavor, but it's not too much, right? It's soft, perfect for the summer. I don't know what it is with that, but I don't like things that are too heavy in the summertime, especially if you're sitting outside, like around a campfire or something, like you've already got so much else going on. Just to have something light and easy drinking, especially among friends. And that's really the highlight of this, right? Like you're going to be able to sit down, pour yourself a glass, and you can enjoy it while you're watching a movie. You're not like fighting to pull notes out of it. Like it's not overly complicated, but it's sufficiently interesting to give you something to really enjoy as a nice sipper. So for the price point, the quality of the whiskey, the just novelty factor of it, right? Like it was created from the notes of John Wayne himself by his son Ethan and, in his memory. So it's a lovely little story. It's a very nice whiskey and it certainly deserves a place in your cabinet.